we are trying to answer the question, is it possible that Asherah was written in sacred text but eventually revised out? Is there a possibility that she could be found side by side with Yahweh in her glory? And I believe the answer to that is yes. And we've been reading from the book Only One God, Monotheism in Ancient Israel, and the Veneration of the Goddess Asherah. And this scholar, Meinhard Dijkstra, believes there is a possibility that hidden in the scripture, Deuteronomy 33, 2-3, that Asherah remains in a positive. We're going to learn all about it. Quickly, let's do a brief rundown of what we learned from the last few pages that we read from this book. We learned that the gods evolved and their relationships also evolved. They were not stagnant gods. They're very fluid. Just like we evolve, society evolves, so do the gods along with us. So back in the day, Israelites worshipped Asherah and El side by side as divine parents. Her children were seen as her sons and El's sons, the Canaanite pantheon, B'nai Elohim. And eventually, as Yahweh rose in popularity and usurps El, of course he's going to take Asherah as his. It wouldn't have made sense. It wasn't as the Bible likes to describe it, with Hezekiah coming in with these reforms and all of a sudden the goddess is vanquished. It didn't work like that. It took many centuries for that to happen. So let's dive back into the book and then we'll do another little summary, okay? So we learned that Ishtar could also be a synonym for the goddess, just as well as Asherah could be a synonym for the goddess, just like El is a synonym for God. Anyway, when set against the background of this official call of Yahweh and his Asherah in the Israelite kingdom, the Judahite epithet of Kerbet El-Kom gains increased significance. So we learned of these two inscriptions from Kerbet El-Kom and also Kuntalet El Ajrud, and they have similar inscriptions with Yahweh side by side with his Asherah, just as Deuteronomy 33, 2-3 has Yahweh coming down from the mountain with Asherah and his holy ones also at his side, which would make sense because, as I told you before, in the ancient pantheons, the gods would work together side by side. And yeah, they also fought. This wasn't always honky-dory. I'm not trying to say that. But it would make sense that at this time of polytheism, these gods would work hand in hand, just as the peoples would work hand in hand, right? It's a reflection. It's a mirrored reflection here, okay? Societies reflect each other, and they're reflecting up to the gods and back to each other. Okay, oh my God. Infinity and beyond. Stop it. Oh, where was I? Though scarcely attested previously, such text, which mention both Yahweh and his Asherah, were perhaps no exception, though perhaps not the rule either. The use of this formula in letters and epitaphs suggests more than just marginal syncretism. The fact that the goddess gave her name to an Israelite and Judahite cult object representing her, along with the evidence that cultic objects and vestures were manufactured for her, and the fact that her prophets and other temple staff in her service are mentioned, the Kedeshim, which sounds a lot like her name, Kudshu Kadesh, as well as the existence of her own cult places and festivals, suggests veneration as a goddess. In contrast to Samaria, these cult places dedicated to Asherah were probably not found in the Temple of Jerusalem itself, although the possibility cannot be entirely excluded. It is more likely that they were situated nearby. Perhaps the reference in Isaiah 6:13 to the destruction of the Allah, the mighty tree. Remember, we learned about Allah and Alat. Alat means goddess, which sounds like Eloah, which means El. Hey. Oops, keep going. So Allah, the mighty tree, of which the stump was still found in the holy garden, regarding the Kadesh, or the Garden of Kadesh, the Be Mizra Kadesh, or the Garden of Kadesh, Asherah, may hint at such a cult place. This would be set off more explicitly the iconoclast activity of King Hezekiah, that according to 2 Kings 18:4 also hit the Nehushtan, the bronze serpent made by Moses, an object that some scholars suppose to have been dedicated to Asherah. Others also assume that the cult place and statue of Asherah is mentioned in Ezekiel's visionary guided tour of cult practices in Jerusalem. This statue has been identified with the idol that King Manasseh made, but with was allegedly moved to the north gate. It is more plausible that Ezekiel refers to a different cult object of Asherah, located in a kind of chapel in the northern gate of Jerusalem. I suggest that the words, where the booth of the statue of Kinah-Hamkenesh stood, point to the presence of a cult place and a statue of a goddess. I've talked about this scripture before. We can go into detail about it if we need to. Oops, shut up, just read. Where the booth of the statue of Kinah-Hamkenesh stood, point to the presence of a cult place and a statue of a goddess. The words Kinah-Hamkenesh, jealousy provoking to jealousy, remember that? That's why these Bible writers and scribes and redactors had to get rid of her. Jealousy are probably a deliberate distortion of Asherah's title, Kiniyat Hamikena, creatress of the livestock. I have told you that before, that is one of her epithets or titles, is creatress of the livestock, of creatures, of the gods. At Ugarit, Asherah was also known as Kuniyat Elim, mother creatress of the gods. Schroer suggests that the statue was a replica of the well-known cow and calf motif. And that was also found on that ostraka, the inscription. However, an anthropomorphic statue of Asherah comparable to the image of the Potnia Theron, the ruler of the animals, is more obvious. So all this symbolism is pretty much synonymous with Asherah. Those in the day would have seen it and known who she was and what was being represented. Oh goodness, keep it moving. The cult of Asherah continued to exist until the end of the kingdom period, but its days were numbered, for opposition to her cult and priesthood was increasing, as may be deduced from the cult reforming measured by Asa, Jehoshaphat, Hezekiah, and Josiah. The cult statue made by Manasseh was probably not a novelty, no it wasn't, but a reaction to Hezekiah's reformation. That's right, they were like, no, bring the goddess back. In this period, Asherah was apparently still known as the Queen of Heaven, a title with a long history in the ancient Near East for related goddesses such as Asherah, Astarte, and Ishtar, a title that still evoked the once powerful statue of the Old Mother Goddess at the end of her career in Israel. In 2 Kings 23:4, the sacred pole as her cult symbol was, as far as we know, removed from the temple of Jerusalem and destroyed. Also, the special rooms for her priesthood, the Kadeshim, whose wives were weaving batim, a kind of cultic vestment for the goddesses, or her sacred pole, were demolished. We're going to have to stop here. I can't believe I have like one page left. I apologize for that, but I'm not going to be able to finish in the amount of time needed, and I want to sum it up anyway. But I thought as a friendly reminder, I would let you know that this video is 10 minutes long, and every 10 minutes a child is dying in Gaza because they are being heavily bombarded in Rafah, which was supposed to be a safe space, and people are living in tents in camps, and that is where they are dropping bombs and they can't get out. There's nowhere to go. So stay tuned for part 3.